Alrighty. So for this assignment on the coronavirus, I chose the article that's on COVID, and it's the virus targeting central nervous system. Um, and basically, as a general overview, this virus is in the SARS family. Um, the genus has been shown that it came from bat, and it is indeed the SARS COVID family. Um, it broke out late 2019, and basically the direction of this paper is they want to focus on the ACE2 receptor, which is the receptor that this virus targets. And the reason why it could be so detrimental is because these ACE receptors can be found everywhere in the body, not only just in the lungs, but it's popular in the lungs, the kidneys, and around the heart and stuff. But these receptors are also found in neural tissues, and can in fact cause a lot of damage if they're concentrating and targeting neural tissues. So basically, this article is here to pretty much just to investigate the correlation between the ACE2 receptors and COVID-19. Um, this first part right here is just the intro, kind of showing you basically everything I kind of said, how is a newer form of coronavirus, or this in the SARS family, and it just says that the WHO officially renamed it COVID-19. Also mentioned how it's part of the genome is like, yeah, is SARS, and it says it did come from a, a bat. Yeah, so then also right here, this part 3 is also going over how the areas that are heavily affected by ACE2 receptors in the body. And this figure is basically here just to show how it could pass the blood-brain barrier and actually reach the brain. And the crazy thing is about this virus is some kind we learned in biochem. It kind of ties into this is the binding affinity. COVID has a high binding affinity to this receptor because of its spikes. I think they're called golden spikes, maybe. Let's see. Yeah, they're called golden spikes. They're just it has a high binding affinity to these receptors, and it outcompetes other other um, other molecules from binding, which is pretty interesting. And then 3.1 is here to show supporting evidence that COVID-19 has targeted and has been found in patients having COVID-19 found in brain tissue and ganglion tissue. Yep. Oh yeah, and this was pretty interesting. I found too is that this study has shown that I think it was like 30 something percent of patients had neurological manifestations from this virus, which that basically confirms that COVID-19 has neurotropic potential and can affect the brain, which is something that's you definitely don't want to happen. Point 4 is mainly going over host and virus interaction, and this is kind of where it talks about binding affinity and the spike protein itself, and it just shows that it's 10 to 20 times 10 to 20 fold higher than the other SARS virus spike proteins, which I thought was pretty interesting. That's why it basically outcompetes every other virus from binding. And the crazy thing about this virus is I think it's been shown to affect 3 times as many people as the flu. So it can spread three. So if the flu spreads to one person, this virus spreads to three people. So which means that it's highly transmissible, and the binding affinity of this spike protein is also way higher than average. So this is a super interesting and kind of scary virus that you really don't want to get. Um, yeah, and then this figure was also really important. Um, this figure kind of just goes over. It's showing the subdomains and it's showing basically the amino acid sequences and how it correlates between how it actually is, um, how the bat and the SARS spike protein line up, which I thought was pretty interesting. And then it shows how the p-blast results. I'm sorry, the p-blast results can be further used in other matchings, and we can reuse these numbers now that these sequences, now that we have it all kind of mapped out. Now it'll be easier to like detect, and we can critique and keep adding to it and critiquing this the sequences, but it's basically here to show all like the subdomains and the amino acid sequences, which is pretty cool. This next point, point 5, proposed cascade of cerebral involvement in COVID infections. It's pretty interesting. This is basically going over basically the virus and in general how it affects general circulation and enables how it can affect cerebral circulation, cerebral function, and how it can pass the blood-brain barrier. All right. So also in this article, also in this point, I forgot to mention is that the way they think the movement kind of happens with this virus is it passes the cribriform plate close to the olfactory bulb, and that's pretty much how this virus can reach and affect the brain. Is it passes through that barrier, which is like I said, something that you don't really want to happen, and that's basically how it alters the smell and taste. That some people kind of report with COVID-19 that they can't smell whenever they're starting to get affected by it, which is a telltale sign that it's altering your brain chemistry whenever your senses kind of are kind of out of whack. Um, as a side note, back in like January, I got kind of sick before school, and I think like my senses of like smell and taste were kind of altered. So maybe I did have that. Maybe it was some kind of other form of virus, but that was a side note. And then point 6 was how what they want to do with this information, and now that they have kind of like the p-blast and stuff and amino acid sequencing of the bats, the SARS virus and everything, and now with the conclusion they want to basically just give an overview of what direction they want to take with all this information and moving forward. And now that they know that, I think I said 30-something% of patients have reported um, COVID-19 like binding to ACE receptors in the brain and having affected the brain chemistry. Um, this is going to be, I think, a highly researched virus for a while, and it's also interesting how it can affect the brain. To me, at least, I find it's pretty crazy. Um, yeah, yeah. And basically, one thing they were stressing with this is that it's something that kind of like you want to make sure you protect at all costs is the brain. So if this virus, since it does have an involvement with the brain, you want to make sure that this is prioritized, and like we our treatments are getting better, and we're working to eradicate and control this virus, because that's definitely something you don't want to damage, is the brain, because you damage one small aspect and it could lead to catastrophic things. And then basically it kind of just says who this project was funded by, and then it just states that there was no financial interest backing this article, which is good to have. And that's pretty much it. This is interesting read. It took me a while to start kind of figuring everything out, but it was an interesting paper. It's an interesting virus to kind of study. Immunology definitely helped me kind of prepare for this, and so did biochem, to understand how everything kind of works, and how to just interpret information and stuff. So yeah, that's it.